Let's talk about Declan Rice, though, if we can, James, because Manchester City is one of the names that's now being mentioned as well as Manchester United. Obviously, we've heard all about Arsenal having a second transfer offer rejected. Is this actually going to get done? Is there any fear that they'll miss out on him? Can you set the record straight on this whole situation?
Well, it's got some way to go. I mean, it is actually linked to the Gundogan situation, which just very briefly, City only offered him less money than Barcelona, and they only offered him a one-year deal with the option of a further year. He's got more than that at Barcelona, so that was a huge factor in the reason why Gundogan's gone. But now that decision's been made, I think they will look at the Declan Rice situation much more closely. There is a view. If you talk to people around Declan Rice and particularly at Arsenal, that the player wants to go to Arsenal. They are pretty confident that they've got the heart and mind, if you like. But what they haven't done is negotiate the fee. And some of these other clubs have got some interesting propositions because, of course, if Manchester United were to come in for him, they could offer Harry Maguire. West Ham have looked at Harry Maguire. David Moyes was driving that in particular. Now David Moyes is staying on for another season. You could see why that, as a potential player plus cash deal, would appeal to West Ham. And similarly, for Manchester City, they have Calvin Phillips. Now, if Declan Rice was to join, behind Rodri and Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips barely plays as it is. I mean, he's not going to get a kick of the ball all season apart from in the League Cup. So if there's a scenario where, and I would say, by the way, that as an alternative for Declan Rice or a replacement for Declan Rice, he would be a fantastic signing for West Ham. But in both of those instances, I'm not sure Calvin Phillips wants to leave Manchester City, and I'm really not sure that Harry Maguire wants to leave Manchester United. So they have an issue to overcome there. But I think that's why one of the reasons why Arsenal are just trying to do a straight cash deal. It's a huge amount of money. West Ham still want £100 million. Arsenal have only got to about 90. Both bids were about that level. The second bids comprised more upfront and with add-ons that were slightly more attainable. But West Ham still think that there's quite a long distance or a long gap between where they are at the moment and where ideally West Ham want Arsenal to be in terms of valuation and the structure of the deal. So because there's that distance left to travel, and I think they're hoping that Manchester City or Manchester United might come in and sort of raise the stakes, if you like. There is some way to go on this, but Arsenal is certainly leading the race at the moment.
James, a couple of things here. One, with Arsenal already spending this money on Kai Havertz, is that going to hamstring them in terms of if they have to push the boat out and West Ham sit tight? Do they have the money left after that transfer? And two, why would Harry Maguire not want to leave Man United? I mean, he's not going to play. I mean, he's clearly only going to play when, Lindelof, Varane, Martinez are not fit or it's a Carabao Cup. So why would he not want to leave?
Well, firstly, on Rice, the word around Arsenal at the end of January into February, at the close of that window, was that they were thinking of trying to do Rice and Caicedo this summer. Now, they've stepped back from Caicedo at the moment and they've pursued Rice. And I think the Caicedo money has almost been used for Havertz, if you like. So I don't think from a financial point of view that they have an issue doing those two deals. Now, of course, if they do both of those deals, Granit Xhaka is already interested by Leverkusen. We thought that might have happened, but that's just sort of hit a bit of a snag at the moment. And the other one is Thomas Partey, who could easily leave. He's been offered a huge amount of money, I think, to go to Saudi Arabia. There's certainly talk about that. And I think they would look to maybe move Partey on if they could get Rice in. So they could obviously make some portion of the fee back there. Look, on Maguire, I agree with you. I mean, Maguire should have left in January. He could have gone last summer. Manchester United have made it very, very clear that he's deemed surplus to requirements there. Maguire just doesn't want to let it go. I think there's two reasons behind it. I think, firstly, he feels that he should be playing at an elite level, and with all due respect to West Ham, that's clearly a step down from Manchester United trying to win the Premier League or at least challenge for the top four and obviously being in the Champions League. And secondly, his England future. I think, Gareth Southgate has been incredibly loyal to Harry Maguire, and I think had the World Cup not been in the middle of the season, had the World Cup been when it was supposed to have been, he might have gone. But because it was in November and December, he thought, well, actually, I can stay at Manchester United. This is last summer I'm talking about now. I can stay at Manchester United. I could probably play half a dozen, 10 games, and that'll be enough because the World Cup's in November and I'm already in the England squad anyway. But now he's got a full year for Euro 2024. And if Erik ten Hag is essentially saying to him, look, you're not going to be my first choice. We may sign another centre-back on top of the ones we've already got. But either way, you are fighting from behind. I'm with you. I think he should move on. I think it would be better for him, for his career, and better for his England prospects. But he just doesn't want to let that go. And I think he feels if he takes a step down, will he ever get a step back up again?
I don't think so. But that's kind of where he is, isn't he? But I think from Arsenal...
But that's hard to accept, though, isn't it, Craig? It's easy for us to say it. But I think for him and a player who's been, he's captained Manchester United. He's been an England regular under Gareth Southgate. That's a huge thing he has to accept, to say, actually, do you know what? Yeah. My absolute elite level of my club career is over. That's a hard thing for any player to deal with.
It is, but when scenarios change and facts change and opinions change, and more importantly, managers change, you have to sit down and say, right, this was a great move to a huge club. It hasn't been a disaster, but it hasn't worked out the way that I wanted. There's been a managerial change. I'm not 22, 23 anymore. I need to play. I want to salvage my England career. Even though Southgate has been loyal, how long can that continue? And then it comes down to the fact that how much do you want to play?
Yeah, but I think that we underestimate the dialogue between the managers as well, Craig. I think that he's not like Harry Maguire is like doing an analysis of his situation in his own bubble. He will talk to Ten Hag. He will talk to Gareth Southgate. It may be that Gareth Southgate told him no, that, well, we'll see how the new season starts. Are you a part of that? He can say that Ten Hag has said, I will have a fair chance. But I'm with you guys. I think if to save your international career, you can say you can go to West Ham because that'll be okay for you. But these are top athletes. They want to do well. They want to prove themselves. And if you're a captain of Manchester United, you don't want to leave the back door saying you're not good enough. So to find that balance, you need the people around you to tell you, well, now it's time to maybe take one step back and see how you're doing as a football player. But it's a quite hard, I'm not saying that it's a gamble to stay on, but it's a quite hard move to say, yes, I agree with all my critics. I didn't do well for Manchester United. I think he is desperate to do well at Manchester United. And I think that it drives him to not make any decision, to go to, in no disrespect to West Ham, a club lower on the table.
Well, listen, I know he's desperate to do well at Man United, but trust me, he's not going to play. He's going to play very little, and that's the end of the story. So he's either a potential make weight in one of these moves, or he's going to sit in his backside. Look, he's not the big story here is Declan Rice, right? I know Maguire and others are sort of potential make weights and a transfer, but this guy is such a good player. He's such an important position that I do think it is hugely important for Arsenal and maybe others to push the boat out to get him in. Thomas Partey I thought he was excellent last year, up until a point where, he played a lot of games, started picking up some injuries, then his form dipped a little bit. Jorginho came in, played some games, did okay. But we're talking another level here. We're talking a young guy who's got great experience now, who's a regular in the England team. He covers the full-backs when they go forward. He's got good pace. He's got a fantastic reading of the game. He's very tidy on the ball. I know there's one or two that think he's limited in the range of passing and all this. Nobody's perfect. But he's physical, and he has all the attributes that Arsenal need to go into an engine room and make them better. And I do think that they're going to have to push the boat out here with West Ham if they want to get this done.
If you were Rice, where would you want to go?
Well, look, you look at Man City, but then you look at Rodri, right? Now, Declan Rice is a better player than Calvin Phillips, and Calvin Phillips is a good player. And James has already touched on it. Calvin Phillips has been sat on his backside. And when he plays for England, they play with two in there generally, so there's two more defensive midfielders. Not all the time, but a lot of times, so he gets some games. But at Man City, there's Rodri. So if you're Declan Rice, you go in, you say, yeah, I'm as good a player as Rodri. And I'm not, people can debate that. But Rodri's done a terrific job. So how does that work? Man United, he plays all day because Casemiro's not getting any younger. But Arsenal, it's an up-and-coming team. It's a young team with a young manager who I think has convinced a lot of people. And if he wants to stay in London, that's the best place to be. Not Chelsea, not Tottenham, not West Ham. At the moment, the best place in London to be is Arsenal.